going? Thanks for coming on.
Good. How you doing?
Good, good. I'm doing really good. I'm glad that you're coming on because I saw you on the last stream. You were watching the last stream. I've seen you on a few streams before, actually, and I'm familiar with your product. And I remember you from like the kind of like I guess if you want to call it the early days of prediction markets, which was just September. But I remember you building back then in the space, and you were one of the first people to get support from Kelshi, which was pretty interesting. So yeah, I guess I'm just glad that you're here, and I'm excited to hear about what you're building, and maybe we can start with an introduction if you want to introduce yourself, and what you're building and working on.
Yeah, I mean those early days in September was that was definitely a fun time. So yeah, I'm Riley. I in September I was working at Deloitte, and um, over the past 2 years I've been doing arbitrage on prediction markets, which kind of led me to this September of kind of the build in public, or at least like build and launch something. So I had launched Monitor the Situation, which is essentially a tool that I needed to find some more interesting arbitrages rather than just the normal short term um, arbitrages that I was initially capturing over the last few years. um, so yeah, I built this out, and a couple of my buddies were like, "Hey, you should just post it on Twitter." I ended up posting on Twitter. It went pretty crazy. A lot of people seem to like it, and that kind of leads to today, where I quit my job and started Synthesis.
Yeah, and like I think it's really interesting because when I saw synthesis initially, it I understood it as like an kind of an aggregation platform, like kind of like you're aggregating. You can trade on multiple places really easily. I had no idea about the arbitrage aspect, and I had no idea about your background in arbitrage in prediction markets. So I'm curious, like before we get into the product, like maybe if you want to talk a little bit about that. Like so when you were doing art, like is it easier now because um Kelshi, I believe, has tokenized event contracts. I'm just curious about how you've been going about arbitrage, maybe technically in your experience with it.
Yeah, I'm out of the arbitrage game. I'm now in the tooling game. But yeah, I mean, when I was doing, I mean, I started with arbitrage and reward farming, or basically market making on Polymarket, um, a few years ago, and like it was pretty profitable. The reason I got here was because of inefficient markets. I like to play with inefficient markets, and crypto got a little bit too efficient for me to make money in the style that I like to make my money. So I moved to prediction markets, and yeah, I mean that's essentially kind of like how I got here. And now, I mean, you know, on Synthesis you can go and see. I see on your screen you have the site open. So like, yeah, you can still surface these arbitrages, but these aren't the ones. If you see a little tab next to all for you in arbitrage, you can go and like kind of click those and surface them. So I like to sort by liquidity, because those are the ones that really matter um, in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, I haven't been in the game as much, and I know the markets uh, that I was in the order books for. I assume that there could be some opportunities, but I kind of let those out for my competitors. It usually would be me and some other on chain address that would be battling it out between these arbitrages, and it ranges from like all exchanges, not just Call Shear Polymarket, but a few of the other smaller ones.
And how did you do arbitrage back then? Like what was the mechanism? Like if you could just like kind of break down very simply how arbitrage was done, because I think it's different today. I think now there's a more technical way, but my issue with arbitrage and prediction markets was always like, and again, like I haven't explored it that much, so this could be a very kind of ignorant question, but it's like, how do you get the Kelshi tokens to be sold on like the Poly Market exchange, for instance? Like if you're doing
So I mean,
Yeah,
it makes sense. So essentially, um, if it is like the same market, same rules, you can buy yes on one and buy no on the other in equal share amounts, and that's essentially um, you can think about it as like a cancellation, so to speak. So you want both of those in a perfect world where there's no arbitrage. Both of those will equal one. So the arbitrage happens when you have a yes and you have a no for the same event or market, and both of those odds equal less than one, and that's what I was capturing.
interesting. Yeah, the markets. I think like the inefficiency of prediction markets is what is still drawing a lot of people into them. Um, it was same thing from my angle. Like I initially got into prediction markets because I felt that they were kind of up for grabs. A lot of the big funds haven't really explored them to a great extent, so you do find a lot of those inefficiencies. Um, yeah, do those opportunities are those opportunities still abundant? And if so, like why? How close do you think we are to having like perfect, efficient prediction markets? I guess
I mean,
very broad question.
we're far from, I think, but I definitely see a world where we do get there. And I mean, they're definitely not efficient. For example, I mean, there's not really arbitrage. I mean, there's more like mental arbitrage where something you can have an edge in. Can think you kind of know is over or is mispriced. For example, last night the Solana Seeker phone had an airdrop, and there's a market on Polymarket. Basically, what is the Seeker FDV? And this airdrop token essentially dropped at around 100 mil, I think, and it was sitting at. I mean, when I went to bed, it was sitting at like 150 mil, and you can kind of go on Polymarket and buy yes that it's going to be greater than 100 mil. And I mean, right now, I think it's sitting at 84 cents, and this ends in about 7 hours. So, and I think it's a good chance that it doesn't go below. And I think most of the airdrop recipients, they didn't get a large portion of shares. They can't really drop the price. The people that did get a large portion of shares are app developers on this Solana Seeker phone. And I don't think they're going to be, kind of nuking the ecosystem. So like, I mean, I think it's a little bit mispriced, and like there's still those arbitrages in a sense, and those are more just mispricings, but true arbitrages, risk-free arbitrages. Again, like I haven't really been looking, but I do know, not even between Culture Polymarket or Polymarket and Limitless. I know there's a few other exchanges out that I have seen in the past 2 weeks that there is some fresh arbitrage, and if I do have the time, I would love to go capture those, but I don't have the time to do that. It does take some time to spin up the bots and monitor the bots and kind of make sure that all your parameters are set right and make sure you don't get end up losing money on these arbitrages.
Yeah, and so like the thing I've always been curious about arbitrage too between prediction markets is how do you account for the rules, right? Like the subtlety of the rules between the different markets,
Mm-hmm.
and how they resolve. Like you could have one market on Poly market which is very similar, like who's going to win the U.S. presidential election, but then you look in the fine details and they resolve on completely different rules and sources. So I'm curious about your experience, maybe digging back into your experience, like how what's the best way to account for that?
Yeah. So I mean, I had a specific niche that I was going after, and I don't know if I really want to share this specific niche because I do believe that there's still some value to be captured there. And if somebody has the will to go and look out and look for that niche, I assume they'll find it, and you can still make some pretty juicy money. But yeah, I mean, I was going after shorter term intervals. Not, I mean, presidential election. I mean, it depends when you actually buy the arbitrage, but you could be sitting on your capital for 4 years, which is like that's not really you know a good way, probably 4 years for like 4%, which that's not a good use of your capital. So I mean, my specific niche was short dated, exact terms, um, and very quickly and many times in the day. I think if you are smart enough in prediction markets, you can kind of understand my niche, but yeah.
Yeah, short dated. I mean, the short dated thing is very important. I remember when I first got into it, it's so funny because when you first get into prediction markets, you're immediately drawn to the long things, or at least I was, just because
Yep.
it's like, oh yeah, these are like the things that capture the most news. But really, what you want to look for is like those short dated, those resolving tomorrow type of things. Um, so I think it's why so many people like the crypto markets. I'm trying to think. I just found a really good one of those. I mean, obviously there's mention markets, but there's also like earnings markets, um, which can be short dated. There's
Yep.
multiple earnings. Um, but yeah, I don't know what like what are some of the best kind of without giving too much away. What are some other kind of short dated markets? Because I'm actually interested in this.
I mean, I
Um,
think sports is like another one that's pretty short dated. Usually, they list the sports market like a little bit before, but you can capture those arbitrages like mid game between platforms, and usually those ones have the same rule sets. But you do have to be careful about like the fine prints in those rules when you're doing arbitrage, because those can, even if it's by a minute, those can be the difference between plus or minus your capital. But yeah, I think sports is a good one for people to look out for, and even still, I think there's still a ton of ways you can capitalize on those sports arbitrages risk free. You just got to kind of be a little bit more creative, because I know there's a fewer big guys who like that's their sole focus right now.
so let's kind of talk about your product a little bit, and because I'm curious about I think when you first launched this, and I remember you launching it back in like pretty much around September, I think, or October. Like it was like V1 of this basically. It was a very early version,
Mhm.
and you could trade across multiple platforms, which you can still do here. Um, but maybe if you kind of want to get into like some of the mechanics of this and what kind of what your vision is for synthesis and going forward and stuff like that. Because I'm interested, like for instance, like this arbitrage, like how does this specifically work?
Yeah,
This
I mean, the whole okay. So I mean, it started with just like the first V1. It was monitoring the situation. That was more just like surfacing markets and being able to discover markets more easily. Now I think synthesis is solve that, and then now also solving another problem, which is another problem that I was dealing with when trading prediction markets, which is just time to order, or like time to click. So the amount of clicks it takes. So if you see an arbitrage that is going on, and you don't have time to write the underlying code for it, or don't have the infrastructure to parse you know parse the market, then paste it in some UI that you created. You basically need, like before, you need to have like two tabs open, monitoring the price, and like for Polymarket you have to sign the transaction then click. For call sheet a little bit easier, but you still have to have there's still some latency in capturing that, or even if you're just trying to capture like a breaking news moment, like there's still like some latency in actually getting that trade out. So like our sole goal is trying to get this time to first trade on actual markets, you know, much much faster. Whether it's 2 clicks, or even one click, which is coming soon. That's kind of our goal. So how this arbitrage works is essentially we monitoring the order book. We're checking if there is a we're checking if there's an arbitrage between the order book, and then using call sheet on Solana and Polymarket, we will buy if there is an arbitrage, we'll buy the exact number of shares on each, and basically execute that trade in the back end. So you do need to have a poly market and call sheet balance, and sometimes you to get the same amount of shares for each, you sometimes will have to have a skewed balance on one. One may be cheaper than the other, so it'd be like $10 and then 150 on one side, and then you can capture that over a certain period of time. What is this one? Yeah, so this one you're gonna have to be waiting till only a few days. But it doesn't look like there's any potential profit on this one. So also with this arbitrage is essentially it's also sometimes some correlation. So these ones aren't necessarily direct arbitrages. These ones are all ending on different dates, but they do have some correlation to each other. So it's like another tool to just kind of see, where the market's sitting, at different dates. But if you go to liquidity, that's where if you sort by liquidity in the top, that's where you can find some one-to-one matches where there is some interesting arbitrages that are one-to-one. So this one is, I'm pretty sure this one is one-to-one. I think it may be one day off, which may be why there's an arbitrage on it. But yeah, that's essentially how it works.
Yeah, this is very cool. I mean, just having this in front of you, having this tool, being able to see both markets on Polymarket and Kalshi, and then you guys executing the entire trade operation in the back. So basically, you have you're hooked into the APIs of both of these protocols, and you basically just execute the trade for both of these traders, for the traders' accounts, basically.
Yep,
Um,
exactly.
Okay, yeah. That's very interesting. I mean, I do think, it solves it definitely solves the click issue because normally this would take a lot of time to build, I would imagine, if you were just operating by yourself. Is anyone else doing this? Or are you guys, to your knowledge, the first people who are kind of doing it in this way?
I mean, we started this in September. I mean, this was the V1. Had this feature inside. So, I think I was, one of the first to actually productize the method of doing it. But I know I had a few buddies who had done this, a couple years before, at least a year before. But it was for their own personal gain and not productized. So yeah, I think I was one of the first at least to put it out, and now we put it in a cleaner UI, added some more features around it. We have so many other features other than this in the platform: copy trading for Polymarket, stop losses for Polymarket. What else do we have? Yeah, tons of features related for you page.
Bonds, bonds in here too.
Bonds. Yeah,
Yeah.
finding the best traders. We have there's just it's starting to be a lot of features to count. We have so much data so for these mention markets, for example, we have live streams for most of the biggest markets, whether it's Trump or Zoran. We have the live stream. We have a live stream tab that will pop up for those mentioned markets when it's live. If you go to sports, we have the fastest sports data. We're faster than Google when updating sports scores. So if you are a sports trader, I would be trading on Synthesis. Sometimes even the ESPN stream is a little bit lagged than the actual call sheet odds. So being able to capitalize on that quickly is definitely the most useful thing, right?
Yeah. Well, it's because latency just plays such a pivotal role in trading these types of markets. So it's good to have the fastest, kind of like a super fast way of getting that data to people. So in synthesis, what do you find is the most popular feature that people like? Because there are a lot of features, and I think for me, definitely the arbitrage looks very interesting, but the copy trading sounds interesting as well. So I'm curious, what have you found that is kind of like your biggest selling feature with this?
Yeah, I think the copy trading and then also just like the speed of data is probably just the biggest feature. I mean, just the fact that even from some of these other .com UIs, updating your orders, updating your positions, like sometimes will take a few seconds after you've placed the trade, which, sometimes the whole market can move against you in the blink of an eye if something does happen. Um, like I think that's like, you know, pretty much my favorite feature, at least, because I know when I'm placing a trade, I want to be able to, see it update in the UI as fast as possible, get in, and maybe even get out as fast as possible.
Yeah, the speed of this stuff is very important. For so I find it interesting. So people really do like copy trading. Like that's becoming a huge thing. Because I know in traditional kind of equity markets, like or crypto markets, copy trading is popular. But I'm curious, like if you think it's more popular here as opposed because I see so many copy trading apps, right? There's the Telegram copy trading apps. We've integrated with a lot of them with our AI.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, like, what do you feel like copy trading has more of a place in prediction markets, or do you feel like it's kind of about the same as in traditional
Yeah, I
stocks
mean,
and
so I
cryptos?
think it's really interesting because now you have this marketplace where you can view these basically a leaderboard. So imagine if the stock market, like imagine you have a leaderboard, which you sort of have a leaderboard. You can like see the biggest funds, see what they're buying, etc. Not really in like the way of a leaderboard sense. It's not labeled a leaderboard, but you can go and find who's holding what. If they are like you know uh, a politician or something like that, and like apps like Dub, I think is the name, and there's a
Hmm.
few others that you can actually go and copy trade somebody's stock portfolio, whether it's like Nancy Pelosi, or I think they have like the inverse Kramer in ETF or something like that. But and you could fade Kramer's calls, but I think people want this. I mean, that some people just don't have the time to do the research on things, and if you are a good trader, it and doing the research, it helps the individual trader who doesn't have the time to do the research to you know make a little bit of extra money on top of your research. Which there's we're also seeing right now. There's a lot of these like up or down bots that are doing some interesting strategies, which seems to be very popular. I would say like copy trading those is a little bit more risky, but copy trading somebody that has been doing the research or etc. is good. And so we also have this like chat feature, which we're going to be expanding on a little bit. So like we added another social layer on top of prediction markets, which if you open up that little like where you just were, if you open up the tab or the box right next to that, the sidebar. So this has like the whole chat feature. So I mean, instead of copy trading, you also can just like share your research and thesis about why you're buying something, which I think is valuable for somebody again who doesn't have time to do the research, which is why I think copy trading is becoming popular. Um, but yeah, those are my kind of 2 cents on copy trading. I know others feel differently, and if you are the one being copy traded, sometimes you don't want to be copy traded, which is why we have the multiple wallet feature. So you can basically one click create a new wallet if you do see your account getting kind of followed or tailed. We added that in so you can kind of remove the need to have your trades be seen.
Yeah, I find that I've built a copy trading app before, and I do find that that is probably the best way to circumvent that. Very simply is to just have people easily create kind of fresh wallets so they can't be copy traded. Um, but I do think it leads into another interesting point is like the value of anonymous prediction markets, and I wonder if we are going to see something like that soon, kind of like a secret network. I don't know if you're familiar with the blockchain secret, but like maybe something like that, but for prediction markets where it's totally anonymous. Can't even see, what anyone is doing. So I'm wondering if I'm interested to see if anyone's working on that. But yeah,
I do have a friend that he's trying to do something like that, and it is an interesting idea. But I think his use case is more in the sense that uh, for uh, for a venture capitalist or something like that, they could like um, privately like yes or no on if this company like is doing well, or like the due diligence on this company. I think you can privately do that. But yeah, I do think there's some interesting things that come into play when you do like a secret network type of prediction market.
yeah, kind of like an anon prediction market, which could be with all the insider trading. I mean, I can't even imagine the craziness that would come out of that. I'm curious. So one of the questions I kind of want to ask you too is I want to kind of get your take on on kind of like the future of this platform, and kind of like why you think that this is the best idea for prediction markets personally for you, why you chose this kind of direction. But in the same token, I'm kind of interested to know if there's any other ideas that you are really interested in the space right now, that you're not working on, but you've looked at them and you're like, this is like a good
Yeah.
angle to attack the prediction market space.
Yeah. So I mean, the whole reason I bought this is I was upset with trading these things on the normal UI. As like a more professional trader, I just couldn't. I was getting frustrated at multiple different points, and even just the other day, I mean I saw Domer's in the Polymarket Discord. He said something like, "Is the UI broken again?" Like that. I mean that if you're trading with as much size as a Domer, like you like shouldn't have to be dealing with these issues at all. And it's kind of like I mean, Domer, I don't think isn't going to stop trading on Polymarket. He has his own workflows, etc. But somebody that's a new entrant that might get frustrated, might churn pretty quickly. I think just needs a new experience to trade these things, and that's the whole that was the whole premise of synthesis. And I think that like kind of ties into like the next point. What's like interesting in this space is you can have these like customizable views for different niches, and everyone has their own different niche. And some people can expand across multiple niches, and that's where synthesis is. I think going is like a MySpace of sorts of prediction markets where you can kind of customize your own board. That's for you with all the data sources that you need for situation monitoring, whether it's like you're monitoring Love Island or you're monitoring something like the presidential election. Like you need different data for that, and you need a different UI for that. Um, and that's like that's where that's the goal that synthesis is pushing towards.
Yeah, I mean it's really interesting because like there was I was talking with the founder of Quantish, and he was talking about how basically there's people think of like quantitative, right? When they think of a terminal, they think quantitative data, because that's what we're used to, but so much of prediction markets is qualitative. So
Mm-hmm.
you have like this need for qualitative terminals almost, and it's like we don't even really know what that looks like yet. I think like the things that we're doing is a little, like, for instance, I think a good example of that is like Pizza Pentagon, who we did the interview with last week, who's like highly qualitative in their approach, mapping everything visually, showing where the maps are. But I think it's such an untapped space. Is like, what would the terminal for Love Island look like, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like we don't even know. We don't even know, which I think is something that people who are exploring are thinking about. That people who are like truly on the edge of this market, I do think, are thinking in that direction.
yeah. It's gonna be exciting to see, and I mean, we have a few ideas here for the Love Islands and the Dancing with the Stars of the world. But yeah, it's definitely there's a lot to explore and experiment with, and like we're excited to try and push the frontier of how you actually interact with these markets. And I'm in the belief that these markets are um, very cool ways to interact with different opinions. And I think there's just so much you can do in terms of interesting and even weird different ways to show this data, which, I mean, our whole goal right now is just getting all the data you need and then experimenting with that in weird ways. Like I guess right now we have, if you go to like a Netflix event, we have all the, the top Netflix shows by views, and you can see the live views. And sometimes the market like doesn't really price in the actual views for some reason. I think it's more those Netflix markets. People are doing it, based on opinion versus not actually looking at the data of how many views the top show of the week actually has. And if you're on Synthesis, you can pretty much capture those instantly, which I think is like another cool thing. Is like once you bring all this data into one UI, you don't have to go and look for it. You don't have to go and try and find this stuff to interact with it.
Yeah, and it might also be like an interesting case study because I remember a while back people were trading in like Oculus or whatever, and I don't even know if people still use Oculus. I mean, I'm sure people still use VR, but it's
Yeah.
had a tough time, I think. But like, yeah, like we might need VR for this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like we might need like
Yeah, multiple monitors and
yeah to map
different
all
things
of that
going on.
data onto this stuff. But I think like the thing with Netflix that you're doing is cool. I can even like so if I navigate to it, like let me see. Am I able to?
Yeah, if you go to that top bar right there where it says Super Bowl, that's a drop down, and that's
Oh
our
yeah.
search bar right there. At the top where
Oh,
it's, yeah, if you click that, yeah.
let's see the net. Yeah, I mean it's just like little things like this, right? Like these little like data
This
points that are
one
specific.
is I think up or down for the stock price. But if you go to one that's where it's like top show of the week,
Netflix top show.
yeah, like one of those
Top show
ones.
this week.
And then if you right next to where it says candlestick, there's a little data tab. It says chart candlestick, and then right next to that says data right there.
Oh yeah. Oh, this
So
is
that's
really
those are
cool.
all the live views. So his and hers is I mean even here like you could see the gap, like that's 29 million views versus 9 million views, and what, we're on Wednesday right now. I mean, I don't know if this Agartha Christie's is really going to get up to that. I mean, he's 20 more million views, which could get it, but like you can kind of see that skew right there, and based on the odds, 65 versus 27. I mean, pretty big skew.
Yeah, yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool to yeah. And you also get like the news here too, which is really fun. Um, yeah, I do find like news to be helpful when I'm trading these markets too. Like, it's hard to read it sometimes. Like, so for news sources, like we have a news API for our app, and it's like okay, yeah, the news is great, but it's like okay, well, how do I read it like in a way that's timely to trade these markets? But like that's why I like stuff like this, which is like very very detailed, very specific about the data.
Yeah, and then you also can like go to the top holders and basically view like everyone's P&L. This is all real time. Like how many people are actually in this market. So like right now, there's only 13 people holding this stuff, and on the yes side and no side is 11. But I mean, you can view their P&Ls. You can kind of see who's trading, and like, and then it kind of ties into like the insider aspect where you can, you know, if you click on one of those addresses, you can kind of view what kind of trader this is, and if this guy is a sharp in if this guy is a sharp in Netflix for some reason, go ahead and copy trade him. And I guess I didn't mention we do have the fastest copy trading. We Most of these copy trading bots, even the Telegram ones, are getting they're about 6 to 8 seconds actually behind the target, which that is a long period of time. We get in this usually the same block as the person buying. We built out this benchmarking tool, copytrade.lol, where you can kind of view the stats of all these Telegram bots and all these other copy trading tools versus Synthesis, and kind of see the trades happening in real time. Which I don't understand how a lot of these copy trading bots are doing so successful when they're 6 to 7 seconds after the fact somebody places the trade.
I mean, I think people are still discovering. I think people just
Yeah,
haven't caught on to like. I mean, I think I mean, the other issue with a lot of the copy trading bots is there's if you're building a copy trading bot, you got to really consider the design because there's been quite a few hacks recently. I think.
yeah,
Um,
that is
and
true.
that's
Very true.
Yeah, and you're just, if you're storing the custodial wallet, you got to make sure that you're storing the custodial wallet in a good place. And this was an issue with Unibot, right? So I imagine that I don't know if you remember Unibot. Are you familiar with them?
I don't think I am. Is this just another Telegram
Yeah,
bot?
yeah. This was a Telegram bot that was in the crypto space before prediction markets took off. I think it was like a couple years ago, and it was like easily kind of buy crypto with a Telegram bot, basically, and it got huge. I mean, Unibot was huge. It still is probably huge, but again, like the whole system of like storing the custodial wallet and like it's a database, and
Yeah, that's not good.
you got to be careful about that. Fortunately, like you have like NASA safe with Polymarket and stuff like that, so it's a little better, but do you guys do you guys have like a wallet management system, or do you kind of third party that?
Uh, yeah, we use Privy. We don't store our keys in a GCP server, which that's, I mean, interesting design from the get go. I mean, if you have been, I mean, it just kind of shows like if you some of these people just haven't been in crypto for a while, and I think they kind of see an opportunity to hop on and vibe code up something really quick, and they're not thinking about their users, which I mean is it's a shame, but yeah, we do think about our security, and even around PII and other things, we do everything pretty secure.
Yeah, so I want to move on to some of the last questions here. But before I do that, we have a comment, which is interesting, and I just want to get your thoughts on it. If an anon prediction market were to happen, wouldn't that hurt the space with more insider trading? Which I guess my question to you on that is like, what's your opinion on all this insider trading? Like, some people like it, some people don't. Like, Brian Armstrong says it's a feature, not a bug. So I'm just curious about what your take on that is, kind of like a wider meta question about prediction markets.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the camp that it's like, if there's a market on the Suez Canal being open or closed, I have some, I don't know, I have some shipment coming in somewhere. I would want the captain of that ship to tell me, or to at least have that information, like tell me, is it closed or not? And I would want him to tell me that through the market, right? Um, so like that could be considered insider trading. Like he himself is at the Suez Canal. He sees if it's open or closed. He can place the trade, um, but that also gives the participants who are just viewing the odds, the most informed information about whether this Suez Canal is open or closed. That's kind of my thought. I think it is kind of a feature, and I even asked one of the commissioners. About this at the SEC, and she basically had said it is kind of a feature, and I mean it opens up some interesting questions, and um, I'm very curious how they handle this uh, in the law, and I think it opens up just like a ton of interesting questions for everybody, and I'm excited to see how it plays out. But I do think it's a feature, not a bug, but I. I do think that there's ways that it isn't good. For example, like the Coinbase earnings is a little bit of an interesting thing. I think it gives people the wrong idea of this space where Brian Armstrong basically like went through all the strikes on the Coinbase earning mention market at the end of the market. I mean, sure, it's for the memes, but it does kind of like put a bad rep uh, on the space in itself.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion on that is I don't think anything was intended by that. Like, he obviously wasn't betting or anything like that. I
Yeah,
think he
yeah,
thought maybe he was like promoting the space by doing that. Like, oh yeah, this is really cool. I just maybe he didn't think about the
It was for
people.
the memes for sure,
It was
but
for the memes, yeah, yeah. Maybe just didn't think about the people getting wrecked because I do remember some people were like, "Oh my gosh!" Like I just like you're that close to winning the entire market, and then it's like all of a sudden this happens. So I
yeah,
guess beware. But at the second time, I've seen people approach the insider trading in a way that is like, okay, well, that's just part of the game, right? That's just part of the game. Like if you know that Brian Armstrong is, on the deeply involved in prediction markets with Polymarket and Kalshi, and you know that he's familiar with it, maybe just guess that he's going to do that, right? Um,
yeah, that's another side of the coin for sure.
yeah, and like the ways people take the prediction market analysis is crazy. Like right down to the rules, like knowing the map that like a geopolitical market resolves on. It's like the game just goes so much further than just trading and things like that.
Yeah, the
Um,
game runs deep. I mean that's why I'm so fascinated with the space that um, somebody will fly boots on the ground, do some polling themselves, and then ended up placing like a large bet on some side, for example, like the Portugal election or even Freddie with the last election. I mean, it's like that's my favorite part of the space, and I think like at Synthesis, we also want to kind of sponsor some of these people, like sponsor a researcher to do some boots on the ground research on something, and then come back and share that with everybody. But I think like there's so much cool stuff in this space, and me and the team are just we're happy to be here and be like trying to innovate on this cool space.
so I have two more questions, and then we can kind of wrap it up. But my first question is, I am building in the Polymarket ecosystem. I got we got a Polymarket badge. We got close to the Polymarket team. We got a grant from them. You went in kind of a different direction with Kalshi. And I'm curious, like to me, that's a completely foreign ecosystem because I got involved with Polymarket. So like I'm just curious, like from your perspective, from like a builder's perspective in the Kalshi ecosystem, what's that like? Working with Kalshi. I know you guys got some support. I'd be interested to know about your relationship with Kalshi and what that's been like, and maybe what you like about Kalshi.
Yeah, I mean, Culture's been great to work with. We also work with the Polymarket team as well, and they've been just as great to work with as well. Um, I think with this stuff, it's gotten pretty tribal, and I'm not really a fan of that. I mean, I come from the arbitrage background where I just am looking at the prices. I don't really care about the brand or anything like that. I'm more just care about my fills and care about where I'm going to be getting the best price for whatever I'm trading. And I'm in the camp of that. I we went with Kalshi at the time because they saw the vision that we were trying to push just a little bit better, and that doesn't mean. I mean, I started out with Polymarket. That's where my origin story came. I was a market maker on Polymarket. Um, so I mean, I'm pro prediction markets at the end of the day, and whoever is willing to help Synthesis push prediction markets a little bit farther, that's where we're spending our time. And I think it's gotten a little too tribal, which I
Hmm.
don't like that at all. But yeah, I'm pro prediction markets. That's kind of the answer to the question.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I agree with you too. Like the tribalism is interesting, and the only reason I can factor into why the tribalism happened, I mean, I think I'm curious on your take. Like, do you think it's going to die off? Because the only reason I think it happened initially is just because of these exchanges are hyper competitive over liquidity, right? Liquidity,
Yeah,
mind share to a certain extent, but liquidity is a rare resource, and you need it.
yep,
And it's like uh, you know, it, it's interesting that I don't think you see the same extent of tribalism when you go to like Binance and Coinbase. Maybe you did initially.
initially,
Um,
yep.
So I'm curious, like, do you think this is going to die off? You think this is just a symptom of like an early industry?
Yeah, I think I'm in that camp. I think as liquidity starts to spread out and become equal, yeah, I mean, I sure hope that is the case because, I mean, as a trader, I really only care about my fill price. And some of these people don't really care about that. They more care about the brand, behind that fill price. And uh, yeah, I would hope that that is the case where liquidity starts to find its way to be equal. But I do think that it is early days for this space, and you have to be a little bit hyper competitive to get to liquidity. But I think at the end of the day, it does start to equalize a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, just going back to the Binance days, right? Like the early day, not early, but like the days where Binance was on the scene, 2020 crypto bull market.
Hmm.
The reason why I went to Binance over Coinbase was a very simple reason. They just had more assets. I could trade more cryptocurrency on Binance. I could get the meme coins, right? I couldn't do that on Coinbase. So that's the reason I went through all the trouble to get VPN. I imagine that's a huge reason why Binance exploded, was because they were giving you like, you could
Yeah,
buy like
they were listing everything.
Safe Moon on
Yes,
Binance.
yeah,
I mean, you could buy
yeah,
anything on Binance. So I'm wondering, like, maybe that's the competitive. Maybe that becomes I, it's not a competitive angle prediction markets can take, because I mean it's events, but clearly there's a competition over liquidity.
yeah. I agree. I think I mean, each have their own little niches of markets. Like I think Kalshi has more mentioned markets than polymarketed sometimes, and um, there's sometimes more crypto on polymarket than Kalshi, and I think I think I think it'll be interesting to see how it kind of plays out over the next few years to several months. But again, I think Synthesis is just excited to be here, and we're going to be there's a few more platforms we're going to be onboarding pretty soon that we're excited to have, and I think for Synthesis it's more about just getting the trader the best fill price that they can on the market that they care about, and we're going to do our best to provide that across a range of different prediction market exchanges.
Okay, I have the question that I ask a lot of builders is, what's your token information? Do you plan on launching one, or are you guys completely token agnostic? Like, by that I mean, do you not have any plans to launch a token, or kind of is that in the works?
No, there's no plans right now, but we do have a point system going on for volume and referrals, and a few other things for like early users. So no, there's no plans, but I would say like try to stack up your points.
Nice, nice. Um, cool. And I guess final question for you, Riley, is like, what is kind of like you kind of already answered it, but what is kind of like the trajectory for 2026, both for what you're working on right now and what you think, do you think we're going to enter into like a prediction market bull run? What do you think is going to, if so, what's going to be the catalyst? But I'm curious on your take on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in the midst of a bull run right now for prediction markets. We're seeing like a lot of new entrants. People are finding it, pretty interesting. But I think like the catalyst to get the next 10x is just a UI problem and how you actually display these markets to somebody that's outside of the prediction market world and even outside of the crypto world. How do you display these markets to them where they can kind of easily digest and may not even have to learn anything? And I don't know if that comes from the sports book type UI. I think it's an entirely different thing, and I mean we're going to be exploring some different types of mechanics to onboard that next 10x of users who you know aren't even sports bettors, aren't crypto, aren't prediction markets already, but a new set of traders that will come onto the scene.
Yeah, a lot of people think it's going to be sports, right? Sports is going to be like the primary market driving people. We got some major sports events this year as well, so
Hmm.
it should be interesting. Plus midterms, if you're living in the United States, which is, we'll see how big that is. But the election markets always seem pretty big. Um,
Yeah, election markets, but I'm also excited about the Love Islands and the Dancing with the Stars, and there's just a whole range of interesting markets that I think just people just don't know that they're there, and don't know how to interact with them. That I think there's a world to open that up to people.
Riley, it was great having you on, man. Thanks for coming on. I think this project's really cool. I mean, I never got the time to look through it, but looking through it on the stream, I think it's really cool, especially like the arbitrage stuff. So yeah, thanks again for coming on and just talking about it. And yeah, it's great having you.
Thanks for having me. And I guess I should mention that we are going to be kind of opening up our infrastructure to other builders that want to just easily build on top of a wide range of exchanges for orders, for matching, for the live news, the breaking news, like basically everything that you see on Synthesis. We're going to be opening up as an API for builders to use, which I mean was the struggle we had this entire time is how do you kind of design this system to be pretty easy, and we want to like let other builders build cool products on top of it. So we're that's one thing I guess I should note before I go.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely be looking into that. I mean, yeah, it'd be cool to get access to some of this stuff. Cool, man. Well, yeah, have a great rest of the day. And yeah, thanks again.
You as well. Thank you.